Hello everyone and welcome back to another Babbling Irons video, and today another rumour, another link, and it is around a player that not many people have actually spoken about. It's kind of been broken today. We don't know how true it is, but we're going to get into that in a second. But it is the centre-back Luiz Felipe from La Liga. So yeah, this link kind of came out of nowhere this morning. I think X hasn't really mentioned it. Any kind of other ITKs around West Ham haven't mentioned this name. So we'll have to wait for further clarification. But this came out today that we are set to sign the defender Luiz Felipe from Real Betis in a deal worth 20 million euros. Both clubs and the player are keen to process the deal this week. Dove a little bit further into where the source came from, and it was actually reported by Colin Miller of The Mirror. And he's kind of stating that West Ham are set to sign him from Real Betis in a deal worth 20 million, with both the club and the player keen to process the deal this week. Now, again, this came out of the blue. It was quite refreshing to hear news that we haven't heard before or seen a name of before from the ITKs that we're usually kind of accustomed to these days. But yeah, Luiz Felipe, it was a name that, didn't ring too familiar, but we've dug a little bit deeper into it, looked at the statistics behind the move and potentially what this player would be bringing to West Ham and whether we think it will be a smart decision to do so. So, without further ado, let's take a look at the statistical breakdown of his profile. And you can kind of see on the screen here what he's good at and how he kind of compares to our other centre-backs, which we'll show shortly. But yeah, 26 years old, 6'2", estimated value of around 20 million euros. And his contract expires in 2027. He is Italian. He was Brazilian born. And I think things were going around on social media of his tendency to have a bit of a hot head. I think he picked up 3 red cards last season. So kind of tells you the temperament of player that we could potentially be getting. But it also tells you he's a player that is not scared or not afraid to put in challenges and be competitive in matches, which sometimes West Ham certainly lack. So let's break down these statistics a little bit more, focusing on those top defending stats to start with. This is compared to the other centre-backs in the top 5 European leagues last season who had played over 900 minutes. So that's kind of the baseline. And that red kind of dotted line down the middle is that baseline of the average. So you can kind of see here successful defensive actions above average. And also you can see aerial duels per 90. The one thing immediately that stands out is those aerial duels 1 percentage, just 10%. So instantly he's not great in the air. It's hard to kind of compare a player when they come to West Ham because obviously you're going to be expected to be very dominant in the air if you are playing centre back for West Ham in a David Moyes team. So this would be something that is a little bit concerning if he was to come into that West Ham team this summer, because we need aerial ability. We need people that are going to put their bodies on the line, which I have no doubt he will. But whether he can compete in the Premier League when it comes to those kind of physical battles, your Erling Haalands, your Ivan Tonys, not that he's going to be playing much next season, but let's take a look at kind of the strengths of his defending aspects. Interceptions per 90, shots blocked per 90, really high in those, high 90th percentiles for those and 80th percentiles. So he is a player that is going to read the game pretty well. He can intercept the ball nicely, and he's not afraid to put his body on the line, which I think most West Ham fans love in a centre-back. Think of Ginger Pele, think of even recently Craig Dawson. These types of players may not be the best technically, but they put everything on the line when they put on a West Ham shirt. So yeah, from that kind of aspect, he will block shots, he will intercept. And if Moyes is looking to play a slightly lower block, as we've seen, over the past few seasons, and he wants to continue doing that, Luiz Felipe is the guy to put himself in amongst that danger. But yeah, the big concern for me is aerial duels, just 10% one, which is not good at all. And then you kind of look at in possession, again, pretty average compared to other centre-backs. And also his attacking contributions aren't amazing, but that's just because he hasn't scored any goals last season. Obviously, dribbles and stuff like that, you're not really looking at. But yeah, in terms of the possession stats, key passes per 90, he's actually quite up there in the 75th percentile. So immediately you can kind of see he's good with his feet. And he would probably, as we kind of said, 20 million euros is probably being the estimated fee that it would be to bring him in. It's an interesting one because we do need centre-backs. Ogbonna is now 34, 35 years old, had that year contract extension. We lost Dawson last season. So now we're kind of left with Zuma, Aged, and Kera. And again, can we really rely on 3 centre-backs with Ogbonna as well as the fourth one? Absolutely not. We need to bring in a centre-back. Names of Jonathan Tah have been mentioned, and it's interesting that Luiz Felipe hasn't been mentioned and is now coming out. So we'll keep an eye on that. And yeah, subscribe to the channel to keep up to date with any of the news as well, because we will keep you informed. But in terms of Felipe and how he compares to our current centre-backs, Aged and Zuma, let's take a little look. So just so you can have it in your mind, here's Felipe's stats. And if we switch over to Aged, you can see there's a big difference in terms of their attacking contributions. That's just because Aged scored a couple of goals for us, so he's immediately in that high percentile for centre-backs. And, offensive duels one, that comes from headers from set pieces and that kind of thing. So defensively, you look at what Aged actually brings, and, you look at what he's kind of known for. And Aged is more of someone that's maybe really good at reading the game, technical ability, very good. But in a West Ham shirt, he's actually been underwhelming, some would say, aerially. But actually looking at the stats, he wins quite a lot of his aerial duels again, 82%, which is really good. Obviously, aerial duels per 90, he's not committing to as many as we probably like him to. But, you look at those aerial duels 1%, it's very high. So what I think Aged's issue has been this season is actually more of his positioning. And, you look at a couple of the goals we did concede, he does tend to be a little bit flat-footed inside our box, and he needs to get that sense of when the danger is going to come in. And I have no doubt next season will be a much better season for him. So someone like Luiz Felipe coming in, would it be to partner again? I'm not so sure. I think this is more of a Ogbonna replacement rather than coming straight into the first team. But it's someone that can kind of contest that position. And, at 26, 27 years old, it kind of fits the profile of slightly reducing the age of the squad and just, balancing those books a little bit. But yeah, if we bring up Aged stats again, you look at Aged in possession, pretty underwhelming statistically. And those are the kind of things that you'd want him to maybe be flourishing in, because we saw it last season when he wasn't at West Ham. He was excellent at that and he was very good. And we've seen glimpses of it. I think his injuries let him down this season. We can't really judge him off what he's produced so far in a West Ham shirt. But I have no doubt that next season will be a much better season from Aged, and we'll see the much better version of what we paid for. And, if we can compare, again, Felipe's stats here to Kurt Zuma, you can kind of see that, again, Felipe's defensive stats are actually pretty good. And, you can kind of see what is expected of our centre-backs, both Aged and Zuma, with the aerial duels 1%, just because of how we play. It's always going to be higher. And, you look at the attacking contributions as well, also scored 2 goals, so immediately goes into that top percentile, and offensive duels 1, again, from things like set pieces. So it looks like an okay signing. Personally, it's not one that I think would be coming in to be an immediate starter. I think it's more of a squad addition rather than this new exciting centre-back to kind of replace Aged or Zuma or kind of contest that first team spot. But with European football next season, we're going to need players that have that kind of experience of competing at the top level, like Luiz Felipe has. But there's a few things there that may be questionable whether David Moyes would get the best out of a player like this, just because of how poor he was last season aerially, and also the fact that he does have a little bit of a temperament. But some West Ham fans might like that. But let me know what you guys think. Would this be an interesting signing for you? It's come out of the blue a little bit, so it'll be interesting to see if this does develop. As we saw there with the stats, it's an interesting comparison because he's going to be asked to do a slightly different role under David Moyes, and those statistics again next season may be adjusted a little bit. But from what we can see, that he's very good at reading the game. Interception-wise, very good. He will put his body on the line with those shots blocked statistics. But, offensively, maybe a lack of contribution. That comes from that, lack of aerial kind of prowess, if you will. And again, defensively, that could be an issue if he does come into the Premier League and play in the David Moyes team, which will certainly be different from a Real Betis team, that is for sure. So, let's know in the comments what you think about Luiz Felipe. Make sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel. As always, we're closing in on 1,000 subscribers, which is amazing. Leave a like on the video, as that really helps as well. And until next time, come on, you irons.